What's up, y'all? Alvin here. You ask, I answer, part 2.
I tell the good jokes.
All right, so I don't know, a few weeks ago, I made a video where I just said, hey, ask me some questions, I'll answer them. I posted it up on Instagram, got a bunch of questions. I was not able to answer all of them, and there were some pretty good ones, so I thought I'd do it again. I'll leave a link to the original video up here somewhere down in the description. But anyway, I posted a question on Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, and Twitter. And here's some of the questions I got. If you're not following me on all those places, you should go ahead and, Alvin Dedeaux or Alvin Dedeaux Fly Fishing. I'm everywhere. If you haven't subscribed to this YouTube channel, you should do that now. Anyway, without further ado, here are some of the questions. I'm going to start with Facebook questions first. Why not? So first question up on the Facebook page is from AJ Jordan, and he says, what's the single most important factor in deciding where you go chase redfish? I would say the first thing I check is the wind. Tides and that type of stuff would be secondary, but the wind's pretty much going to determine where we're going to go, because we're fly fishing. So wind plays such a huge factor in all this stuff. So I'm going to try to find places where we're going to be protected from the wind, or we'll have a good wind direction to pole, or a good wind direction to cast, or somehow or another correlate the wind and the sun. So wind is first. Thanks for the question. All right, next up, Grant Huff asked, what is the largest bass you have caught or a client has caught on the Colorado River? And I know exactly when it was. It was May. It was an 8.5 pound bass caught on a popper on a 6-weight rod. And it was 8.5 pounds because we weighed it. It was not a guesstimate. It actually looked like a 10-pound fish. Thanks for the question. George Randall Leak III ask, have you ever heard of anyone using baby rattlesnakes as a fishing lure? Now, I've seen that post from a while back, and I believe it was from Texas. I can't remember exactly who it was, so I won't say it was so-and-so. But I have seen a post where somebody allegedly used a live baby rattlesnake and caught a huge bass on it, but that may be an urban myth, but it's definitely out there. All right, so this question was asked both on Facebook by Greg DeMars and on Instagram by Ron Ratliff. So I'm going to go ahead and answer this one. The question was basically, is it true that Nirvana opened for your band back in the good old days? And the answer is yes, it's true. When I was in Bad Mother Goose in the 90s, sometime we were playing in the Bay Area, and we actually did several shows with Nirvana as our opening band. I do believe there's at least one flyer floating around out there when we played at a place called the Covered Wagon. I really don't remember much about that show, and whatever. We played with a lot of bands back in the days. What's actually much more interesting is the story about the show that we did not do with Nirvana. So it was the last year that Bad Mother Goose played at South by Southwest. It was sometime in the early 90s, and we actually were not going to play at South by Southwest. So back then they built South by Southwest as a way for new bands or undiscovered bands to get some press. So, we had actually gotten a record deal and were putting out a record on a major label record. So we didn't feel like we should play at the festival because, we done made it. At least we thought we had. Anyway, they talked us into playing at the festival, and they said, okay, look, here's the deal. If you guys play, you can play at any venue and you can pick the bands. And so we're like, oh, cool. We picked 2 bands, 2 Seattle bands, Catbutt and Nirvana. Catbutt was fronted by a guy named David Nobody, who's still around. Of course, Nirvana, everybody knows who Nirvana is. and they were going on tour together. Well, I don't know, a few weeks, maybe a month before the festival, our guitar player, Tim Kerr, gets a phone call from Kurt Cobain. And he says, dude, I'm sorry, Nirvana's not gonna be able to come down to South by Southwest because Cat Butt broke up. And we were actually planning on making our money to get there by opening for Cat Butt on the way down to Texas. And Kurt said Nirvana didn't have enough money to buy gas to drive to Texas. So that was more interesting to me, the time that we did not play with Nirvana. And it was maybe a couple years later when, Nevermind came out and they were everywhere. Changed music history forever. Thanks for the question. Another kind of music related one by Randall Julie Mercado. What's more fun, a phenomenal day on the flats or performing live to a packed venue? I'm gonna say a phenomenal day on the flats for sure. It's been so long since I've been on a stage in front of a bunch of people, maybe I forgot, but I do remember when I was performing on stage, the thing I thought about most was the next time I was going fishing. So, fishing. All right, cool. Let's switch over to the other phone and answer some Instagram questions. Coleman0010 asks, would you buy an Orvis Clearwater outfit? I would say definitely. I have bought multiple Orvis Clearwater outfits. They're great rods, they're great outfits. They're perfect for starting out and not having to spend a ton of money. The Patrick Schaefer asks, what got you into fly fishing and what brought you down to Aransas Pass? Well, I've been fishing ever since I can remember, but I do remember pretty much exactly when I decided I wanted to get into fly fishing, and that was when I was 12 years old, and I was reading this little red fishing book that I found in the library at school that I may or may not have taken home and never returned. But there was one chapter about fly fishing, and I was really intrigued by it. And I told my parents for my birthday, this was actually when I was 11, but I told my parents for my 12th birthday that I wanted to get a fly rod. Somehow or another, they found me one, and the rest is history. I've been at it ever since then. I remember the rod. It was an 8-foot fiberglass, yellow, eagle claw, 7-weight, Martin reel with a level line on it. The journey to Aransas Pass took quite a bit longer. I moved to Austin in 1982, started hanging out at the Austin Angler. Shortly after that, I can't remember exactly when the Angler opened, but I was, they say, one of the first customers there. Just kind of hanging out with the guys there. They actually spent quite a bit of time fishing in the salt way back then. I mean, there was hardly anybody doing it. And basically, they said, hey, you don't have a boat. There's some great water around Port Aransas, Aransas Pass. You can wade fish, you can use a canoe, you can use a kayak, whatever. I just started going down there and figured it out. Thanks for the question. There's a lot of really good ones on here. There's no way I'm gonna have time to answer all of them, so we may have to do a part 3. Captain Sean Lawson wants to know, what did I ask Santa for Christmas this year? I must admit, I'm too impatient to wait for Santa. If I want something, I usually just go buy it. It really frustrates the hell out of my wife. So I don't even have anything on my list right now. But it's great though, because she's so good at finding something that she knows I want that I don't know I want. So that's the best, right? Hopefully I can do that for her this year. Fly fishing dude asks, ever fish Montana? If so, did you fish for anything other than trout? And I have fished Montana quite a few times, and I've never fished for anything other than trout in Montana. So you got me curious. Send me a message. What's going on up there besides trout? I need to know. So fly fishing bass man wants to know if this fly makes his butt look big. And I'm gonna say, absolutely, it looks huge. Sorry, bro. Or maybe that's good. Big butts and all. Okay, so this is a very important question. This comes from Nick Fly Fishing, and he wants to know, who is my favorite Albanian? And can I pronounce his entire name? And I'm going to say it's Besnick, and his last name, if you look him up on the Facebook, is Nick Hacks. So I'm going to say Besnick, Nick Hacks. Now, I tried to find your entire last name, and I was going to make an attempt to pronounce it, but I couldn't find it anywhere on the internet. So what's up, dude? You need to reach out to me and tell me that last name and how to pronounce it. Good question, though. My favorite Albanian, Besnick. All right, so Mr. Steven BDK wants to know, if I could only keep one boat, what boat would it be? And that's a tough one, man. That's like asking me who's my favorite child. That's a hard decision to make. It might be the skiff. I can wade rivers. I can stand on the edge of a lake and cast, but a lot of the flats I like to fish are miles away from the nearest boat ramp. So I think the skiff is the one I just couldn't make it happen without. But don't tell my other boats that. Okay, so I think I got time for one more. And this one comes from Liver Eaton Johnston. Great handle. And the question is, how do you feel about the growing community of fly fishing in Texas? Fly fishermen. But I'd prefer to say anglers because they ain't all men. I think it's a great thing, for any sport or movement to thrive. You're going to need new people to get into it, for things to progress and grow. You're going to need new ideas. And for the natural areas that we use to pursue our sport, we need people who are concerned about those areas. And unfortunately, the more people you have involved in something, the more likely you're going to have more people concerned about taking care of it. So, controversial statement I'm about to make here, the more the merrier. Get out there, encourage other people to get out there, teach people how to respect each other and how to enjoy this wonderful sport together. And it's only going to get better for all of us. All right, y'all. That's it for today's episode of Ask Me Anything. We may have to make more. If you would like me to do it every week, let me know in the comments and I will give it a try. So many more good questions that I couldn't answer. Sorry, didn't want to make this video half an hour long. Thanks for watching. I'll see you in the next one. And in the meantime, good luck on the water.